to this commissioner meeting this new year. If you'll join with me in saying the pledge, I would appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start by introducing everybody. To my far left, we have Administrator Schroeder. We have our new commissioner, Commissioner Pash. Congratulations.
Thank
Myself, Sue Gold. Then Commissioner Boyce. And then we have Council Huddle and Administrative Assistant John Jesuit. So welcome. So let's get started. Are there any amendments to the agenda that anybody has?
On here?
None. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Whoop, we have a question.
Just a clarification, go ahead and do the motion, but...
Okay.
Are we going to let him vote yet?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Okay, call for the question.
Aye.
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 It's not so much an agenda, but the resolutions and orders that were drafted were put in without any titles on some of the commissioners, and so once you elect officers, Brenda Starbird will be watching and changing the orders to reflect the positions after you elect
Oh,
officers.
you mean chair, et cetera?
Exactly, on the signature lines. It's a slight technicality. Didn't think it's an amendment to the agenda, but I just wanted to let you know that we'll be making changes on the fly today.
Okay, next we have election of Board of Commissioners officers for 2019. We'll start with chair. I nominate Commissioner Boyce. Is there a second?
Knew I was going to get ousted the first moment, though. Thank you.
Any other nominations?
Madam Chair, I'm going to move to nominate Commissioner Chris Pash for the 2019 Chair of the Board of Curry County Commissioners.
Okay. Do we have a second? I'll second that. Any discussion on that? Okay, let's call for the question.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
We're going to load you up, buddy.
Okay, do I hear any nominations for vice chair?
I'll nominate Court Boyce for vice chair.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I got one.
Okay, so Chris, since you are the new chair, what we'll do is you'll just take over this meeting, I assume, and then next time you'll be in this chair because we'll have to move all the computers and stuff. So, do you have an
Good plan.
Okay,
Yeah, good plan.
so I'll let you take over the meeting.
Well, I think what's next is public comments.
And here are the public comments.
Okay. Number one is Miss Rose, Nancy Sue Rose.
My name is Nancy Sue Rose. I live in Gold Beach. One of the purposes to have a consistent approach to of a county administrator is to have consistent, let me start over. One of the purposes of a county commissioner was to have a consistent approach between the commissioners and county staff rather than having to answer to three bosses who cannot confer about county business except in meetings. Also to have someone to take care of administrative duties so the three commissioners can handle the duties during the limited time that you have together during meetings. So from one citizen's viewpoint, having a county administrator, the two that we have had especially, have been successful. Please do not undo the good work that has been done thus far. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have David Barnes.
David Barnes, live in Gold Beach. I just wanted to say congratulations to Commissioner Pash.
Thank you.
Both on your election and it's your choice as the chair of this board. I look forward to a good year in front of us and moving the county forward. One of the things as a citizen that I'd like to request is that the public comment for meetings policy, I'd like to see that expanded a little bit. I've been over to the hospital board meetings, and they have numerous opportunities during their meetings for the public to speak out on things that have happened during the course of the meeting. Many times sitting through these meetings, there's things I'd like to be able to comment about that I'm unable to, because I haven't filled out a speaker slip before the meeting begins. And just as a member of the public, you know, it's your job to listen to what we have to say to you, and I'd like more of us to have more opportunity to do that. You know, maybe add another one at another public comment session at the end of the meeting or something like that, so the public can voice what their opinions on what's happened. But, you know, as I said, I look forward to, you know, moving forward, Curry County forward together. And congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just comment on that. Sometimes people come from Brookings or Port Orford, and if they don't get here by 10 o'clock or prior, just a few minutes prior, they're not allowed to speak. And I've been in strong opposition against that, and to relax those rigid policies, and so public participation, and I don't care generally how long it takes. I think it's something we really have to welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Grumman, please.
It's kind of a personal objective. I'm on the Citizens Committee right now to help come up with a revised budget or means to raise cash so that we can be cash positive. I don't envy anybody sitting up in front of me today as to what we have to do this year. There's going to be a lot of water, a lot of difficulty, a very hard year. We're going to have to find ways to manage our costs. At the same time, we find ways to raise money so we can become cash positive as a county. So the comment I'd like to make today, I know you'll be making some decisions on personnel going forward. And I want to, I think, say that I hope that you consider all the consequences of decisions, what we have to get done between now and the fall as far as getting something on the ballot that we can get passed through people. That means we have to go out and sell people in what we're doing. There's a lot that has to be done. So I hope that every decision is made with due diligence on the consequences of those decisions and how we would follow through then to get the things done that we need to get done before the election in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right, that's the end of the public comments. Number E on the consent agenda, appoint the Coos Curry Housing Authority Board appointment.
So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? That's to appoint.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, and that's to appoint Lauren Paulson to the Housing Authority Board, Coos Curry Housing Authority Board.
Thank you, Commissioner Gold. I will second that. Mine just finally popped up there. I know Mr. Paulson, and I think he would be a wonderful contributor to that very important board to South Coast.
Is there any further comments?
None here.
Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving forward to F, a regular agenda. Appointment to the BCRAA, which is the Border Coast Regional Airport Authority. Mr. Schroeder.
So there's been a request by the Border Coast Regional Airport Authority to appoint a current board or a commissioner to the member, which will serve starting on January 2nd. And just for clarification, for the board's sake, they did cancel their meeting that was going to be on the 3rd of this month, and whoever we appoint, they're going to have a special meeting on the 10th. So it'll be this Thursday at 2 p.m. down in Crescent City. So whoever either is appointed or is willing to serve, that is the first meeting of the year. We have a joint powers agreement which is signed in January 2012 between the county and the county of Del Norte, along with other municipalities up and down the coast here. So this is a long-standing organization, and we just need to take a recommendation or get a recommendation for appointment.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask you to be the Curry County Commission representative on that regional board, and I assume you can make it on the 10th, that first meeting. We'll check our travel policy, by the way.
I believe I can, yes.
So we need a motion on that? Yeah.
Just a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Any further questions or comments? Call for the question.
Aye.
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 Here's
Congratulations on that, too.
information on the meeting.
Thank you so much. All right, can we, we're going to move to number G, which is County Administrator updates. Mr. Schroeder?
We're going to do number 4, future agenda item discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one.
Yep.
You are
So-
right.
Yep, so there's a couple items which I would like to bring the board attentions coming forward. Now that there's a new board, I'd like to have a workshop, if the board is amenable, on the Flores Lake property land swap. We've been discussing this issue for quite some time, and we have proposals that we probably would need to meet in executive session first, because it will be discussing the negotiations of land, but I would like to have a workshop first to make sure that the board, first off, is informed, and secondly, wants to go forward with this type of thing. So if the board is amenable to that, I'll schedule that sometime in the future.
So are you speaking of the Flores Lake?
The land swap, 70 acres
Right,
of Flores
right.
Lake land for
Okay.
30 acres on 101. We did have a workshop back in like August or September. What the progress on that, there's been appraisals on that from both our side. Mr. Marino basically did both appraisals. There is a difference in the land value. The state right now it's back in the state's court to basically come back to us with the proposals to mitigate the differences in the land, and I'd like to make sure before we all keep going down this road that the board is supportive of this particular issue before we make anybody else do any more work.
So what date did you have in mind for that?
We would put it together, I talked to the state to make sure that where they're at. I don't know if it'd be, I would hope to have it this month, otherwise it'd be the first, that first one in February, but
For a workshop?
a workshop, yes.
Can I get a packet on that so I can get up to speed?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thanks. Important, in my view, not a priority. And so my preference would be not to accelerate a direction on that from this board, and just, maybe we can do a workshop in the middle of February, but right now, my feeling is not critical with the amount of work that we have before us. You warned everybody might be needing to bring sleeping bags, and so that, I'll buy the coffee and donuts, but I just don't think that's a necessary priority at this time. And there's a lot of additional data that I think might be coming in, Mr. Chair, in the next 4 to 5 weeks, I hope. It would help us bring you up to speed, and certainly all of us. Thank you.
Anything further?
On that particular issue?
Yes.
Administrator Schroeder, do you see the importance of moving forward quickly, or?
I think February is fine to have an educational workshop on it. Send out the packet, the information. I think my main point in here is the previous board seemed to have a commitment to going forward with this land swap. I want to make sure that before we make the state continue to go down work, that this board is also supportive of having a land swap. If they're not, let's put a stop to the process. So it's more of a gather information and support from the board if we want to go forward with this and continue working on it.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we, if I can get a packet, and why don't we reschedule this, put this back on the agenda for the meeting on the 16th? And that way I can look at it as well, and I can give a fair assessment of my opinion, should we go forward with a workshop or not.
Okay. Second thing I'd like to have a workshop on with the commission is towers. Those are aware we've had some significant repairs due to storm damage this year. And all the money we're putting into these towers is basically wasted money because these towers are obsolete, the parts are old. We're buying, Day Wireless is piecing it together with, eBay and used parts, and we're getting tower parts from other counties that are decommissioning their issues, and we're collecting those parts. And it's a very complicated issue, and it's very expensive. Millions, a few $1 million, which we can stage out. And I think it'd be very good to schedule a workshop for Day Wireless to come in and bring the commission up to speed, saying here's where we're at, because at some point we're going to need to commit to repairing these things, or we're going to have, the issues we had just in December. We had South County did not have coverage, and there was no radio coverage. We were using cell phones and/or as far as the reach for the Brookings Tower would go, which is not very far. This is a critical issue to keep not only our deputies safe, but also other emergency management. So if the board is amenable towards that, I will work on a common schedule when Day Wireless can come.
I'd like to ask, go ahead, John.
Sheriff Ward, I have to echo that sentiments. Just to clarify, we're not talking about the towers. The towers are fine. It's the microwaves that are attached to the towers and the radio communications that are faulty. And he's right. We have had some bad communication in the South County where it puts our deputies in situations where officer safety issues. We cannot communicate with them if they're going out on a domestic in the South County somewhere outside of the reach of Brookings. And so I try to make it where I'm sending 2 deputies when I don't have 2 deputies at a certain time on calls like that, because you just can't reach them. And for their safety and the community's safety, it's very critical that those microwaves get replaced and work back in working order. They did take parts from the Black Mound to the Bosley, but that just more of a communication north from Pistol River in that area. Down south, it's a combination of UHF and VHF communications, but without that Black Mound Tower, we're not getting the communications we have. And Day Wireless did find some parts, and I think they're going to be sent out on the 21st of this month. But up until then, we're still flying blind down there in a lot of the areas. So the deputies are having to go in through Brookings to be dispatched in the general area, but outside of the Brookings area, where it's a big issue. So I don't want my guys out there when I can't communicate with them. That's the problem. We're still going to provide the service. We're still going to go, but it's a touchy situation.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Roadmaster Christensen and I went up there about 6 weeks ago. We got up there just before dark because I'd heard there was going to be $7,000 to basically fix the tarp. I'm thinking, wow, that's really expensive. So anyway, we took a look, and when you see how high it is and how poor the access is, you go, man, I wouldn't want to climb up that. So it made sense. We got pictures, came down and kind of made a commitment to go to the other 4 towers we have.
And the one that was damaged, it's not the one that fell. I mean, another one fell off.
Which is double the, yeah. That's.
And we just happened to find out that we had purchased a microwave dish 10, 15 years ago that's been out there and all crated up. It didn't have all the parts we needed. So they were able to put that up, rob parts from the Black Mound to get that done. Now we just have to fix Black Mound.
Right. Commissioner Gold?
So what's the longevity of what we've got? I mean, we're just kind of piecing it together. What's your best estimate of the longevity of?
That's a very tough question.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, this snowstorm could take it out this year, or it could last another 10, 15 years, who knows.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have services with Day Wireless to make sure we're not without service, put it that way, maintenance service.
Yeah.
If we can schedule a workshop, could you try and find time to attend the workshop and kind of, if your schedule permits, of
Absolutely.
course.
And I have assigned, Sergeant Joel Hensley to help, manage the whole tower project.
It'd be nice to have a sheriff's, a voice from the sheriff's office there as well for information.
Absolutely, and I'll have Joel part of that because he's been working with Dave Wireless on a lot of the tower issues and microwave issues. Those microwave issues, we've been talking about getting those replaced for a long time, and it's time. They got to get replaced. If we're having problems with them now, it's just got to get fixed.
Thank you, Sheriff.
So that's when we, oops, excuse me.
One more?
I just have one other question. I know they need replacing, but are we going to be putting into this the replacement costs and having people who are using the towers take care of the replacement costs in the future so we don't end up with this same mess again? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand. The past roadmaster, Doug Robbins, is working on that very issue about having all the users pay their fair share on the maintenance cost on that. Right now, it's been borne just basically by the county and coming out of the road funds and things like that. But
Yeah, well, we've got to do that.
Yeah.
it has to be done.
Plan for the future. Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
That's a good plan. All right, thank you. Sheriff? Well, I'd go ahead.
Just, I think that is a high priority workshop. As soon as we can schedule that would be my view.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
agree.
All right. Those are only two issues that I had on my agenda right off the bat, so.
Okay.
I have one other issue regarding fire bans. November 11th, there was a fire in Cape Ferrelo area. This was after the fire ban had been lifted. And one of the reasons that happened is because, according to the fire chief in that area, the ban had been lifted too soon. So what they would like to do is have the ability to put the ban back in effect. This is in the unincorporated areas, the fire departments, the various fire departments, if that particular region is dry or whatever. But I've already arranged with Mike Robinson on February 13th to come to that, and we also need to get all of the various fire departments invited to that.
I'd be in favor of always replacing a ban if it gets dry and
Well,
we're
and
in
I
danger.
think every area is a little bit different. I know the Cape Ferrelo area has a lot of downed tan oak trees that are very volatile, so.
All right. Moving to H, Commissioners updates. Seems I don't have any history. I don't really have any updates. I would say to everyone here, I am humbled by the showing this morning. All the people at my swearing in. It was quite humbling to me. And I appreciate the county's trust and support. I will promise this county that I will do everything that I can to move this county forward. I have a lot of things going on in my head right now, getting people organized, getting situations straightened out that I feel are amiss, and I will be very diligent to do that. I would ask everyone to please be a little patient, first with the small things of me getting up to speed on some of the little things that it takes to sit here, and then we're also going to need some time to get our direction and our feet under us. It's not going to be one big fix. It's going to be a lot of small fixes. But I will promise you this, I will sit and do the job full time. I will sit here as long as it takes to get the job done. And thank you very much. Commissioner Boyce?
Are we on Commissioner comments now?
Yes.
Just one thing, first on the Mike Robinson Coos Forest Protective Association, the 15th workshop.
13th.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said 13th? Thank
February
you.
13th.
Thank you. I think that might be a little soon, but I'll certainly encourage anyone and everyone to participate. Yes, the fire season is marching forward. Gives a lot of people tremendous concern. We don't want to have a repeat of 2017 and 2018. I have tremendous respect for Mike Robinson, and he takes the designations of the bands very, very seriously. He's been in this business for 25 years, and so yeah, I would encourage the public to participate and hear what he has to say. I attended the Coos Forest Protective Association quarterly meeting last month, and there's just a lot of things going on with the Oregon Department of Forestry, the Good Neighbor Authority, all the Forest Protective in prep for the 2019 season, and I sent out a letter. I think you may have had a chance to read it. I don't know if you had the time. But just challenging the state of Oregon that we need to fund them fully. So maybe this will all work together in a workshop and that information can come out. So we're on Commissioner
Comments?
Thank you. So I have a few things. First of all, congratulations. You know, that's the second time in 6 weeks I left that courtroom with a big smile on my face. There might be some more coming. And so it's a great day for Curry County. As I get to know you better, just on a personal level, I think that there's nothing that you and Bonnie wouldn't do for families and kids, in particular, that are needing support and mentoring. And I've witnessed that myself. And it's a good leadership role you're taking, and I'm just proud to be able to serve with you. And as we get to know one another better, I think that we'll be able to pull a lot of people to unite this county and seriously work towards solving problems. I have the distinction of breaking one of David Brock Smith's records, and that I'd like to say that's thousands of dollars of resources that he's brought back to this county through his dedication and work. But no, it is actually, I broke his record for being gavelled by a former commissioner. And so I see this gavel here, and I'm hoping that now that you're chair, you will take this gavel here and be careful. I'm very sensitive, okay? Pass that over to him. So also, you know, I've been very outspoken in the direction of this county and my opposition to several, I won't go into detail today, but several items that I see as waste, I see as money that has been poorly spent, and I have plenty of documentation. I'd asked the Budget Committee to start a simple audit. Maybe we should start at some point with the Commissioner's Office. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong there, but I think in the full interest of transparency to the public, that it's a new day and a new determination, not just talk about saving funds, but to actually work towards that. And again, the amount of money that's gone out is just absolutely staggering. It's been all with my strong prior and present, or during that time, opposition. As we move forward, I'm going to be working, and I think you agree with this, on a 5-year plan for this county. We know that we need additional revenue sources. We know that we need to cut spending. We know that we're in a tough position. Our state legislature right now, as a lot of people know, you saw the pilot the pilot article, I'm sorry, that they are looking for billions of dollars of additional revenue, something that Commissioner Huxley and I agree on very strongly, that the PERS responsibility, that the burden that comes back to the counties is staggering. And if nobody in the leadership of the state government has really taken on that responsibility to solve that problem. And so as it affects us, there's ways that I hope that we can change that and amend for at least future employees coming into our employment that we can develop a 401k plan and start saving dollars that way. But in that 5-year plan, all this will be lined out, and I'll need your help, and I think it's the right way to go, and I think we can justify any expense, although it should be some essentially minimum to the citizens, that this is the best way to approach our problems. Commissioner's job description. I'm going to read what two people in this community that have worked very hard to volunteer their time, their expertise, their dedication to this job description. What the people that have elected us, what their expectations are for us, and it's one word that comes to mind is accountability. And it's gonna take a few minutes, and I want to commend you for helping me, and also Council Huddle. I think that, for the assistance you offered, and I think a reasonable push to have this meeting today so that we wouldn't even waste 2 more days. We lost last week, and the problems are they're coming at us, and so we just gained at least a couple days, and so here's what we've been working on for several days, and I'd like to ask if either commissioners in general principle concept can support this. Curry County position description, position title County Commissioner, salary level as determined by the Compensation Committee, position summary. The position of County Commissioner is an elected full-time position and responsibility. The 3 commissioners are expected to work hours in excess of the normal business hours established for county employees. County commissioners by a majority vote establish policies, procedures, and direct long-term planning. Specifically, they oversee the following: propose revenue sources, adjust and adopt the budget, set the tax rates, authorize levies, adopt and participate in fiscal policies, expenses, adopt ordinances, establish and appoint advisory boards and committees, participate in the overall business management of the county. They also serve the ceremonial function of the county in representations to the public for the public good and betterment of Curry County and its citizens. The commissioners are the full and final authority of all county affairs, not under authority of other elected county officials. The commissioners serve as the legislative arm of the county as well as the executive and quasi-judicial branches of Curry County government. Commissioners are responsible for planning, formation, implementation of the annual budget, then adoption. In addition, commissioners represent county concerns before local, state, and national boards and commissions. They serve on federal, state, and local mandated governmental panels, boards, and commissions with fiscal duties and authority over public monies. You know, I've been doing a lot of traveling, and I'm very anxious. You know, not that I'm a George Washington, but Washington sent Ben Franklin to France, and he quickly found out how hard it was to learn to speak French. Well, in Salem, they tend to speak French a little bit, but I've made a lot of friends up there, and I have a great conference. You'll make a great number of friends, and that is, I think you believe, a very important part of our responsibility to work for our county and our citizens outside the county. And I'm glad and I'm hoping that you're okay with doing a majority of that travel. I'll still be doing some, but and working the issues that I think are critical and what I've learned on. Commissioners must always be aware that at various times they play different roles as advocates who strive to advance the legitimate needs of their citizens, as legislators who balance the public interest and private rights in considering and enacting ordinances, policies, orders, and resolutions, and as decision makers who arrive at fair and impartial determinations. The Board of County Commissioners must be aware that their obligation to conform behavior to standards of ethical conduct that warrant the trust of their constituents. Each official must find within his or her own conscience the touchstone by which to determine what conduct is appropriate. There's essential powers and authorities here that I would be glad to give the 2 of you. I think you can support in principle. It's not to say that there isn't some refinement or some inputs, certainly from the 2 of you, that you may wish to do. Daily expectations, day-to-day operations include, but are not limited to, attendance, participation, and travel to and from meetings and appointments to further the interests of Curry County with the intent to carry out commissioner duties to the county citizenry. The public expects a strong work ethic and civility to all, including fellow commissioners and county employees. Commissioners are expected to attend all county board commissioner meetings, responsibly exercise the trust conferred by the people upon their elected officials. There's more. That's enough for today. I hope we can work on this over time. Commissioner Pash, do you support it in general?
I do.
Thank you. Commissioner Gold?
I'd have to look at it more carefully, but most of it sounded fine.
Thank you, Commissioner Gold. I think that's all I have, Mr. Chair, for today.
All right. Commissioner Gold?
Okay, as past chair for the last year, part of my duties was to come up with the State of the County report for 2018. So I'm just going to read that, and I'm going to pass a copy to everybody, so you can have that.
Thank you. I'll forward that to him. Can you forward it to me?
Much has been accomplished in the county this past year. I have highlighted some of the events that I feel are important and am reporting these events in 4 categories. First, quality of life for Curry County citizens. Second, economic development. Third, improving county efficiency, communication, and transparency. And fourth, public safety. I realize that there is some overlap in some of these categories, and these events are not necessarily in chronological order. First, quality of life for Curry County citizens. The Board of Commissioners, BOC, was informed about some nuisance and health issues by a group of property owners on Hamilton Lane in Harbor. Previously, these issues were not addressed by BOC because of lack of funding. The BOC budgeted for a code enforcement officer, and those issues on Hamilton Lane have been addressed. There have been quite a number of other properties in Curry County with similar issues that have been reported to the code enforcement officer, and these issues are being prioritized and addressed. 2, Brookings Head Start grant for remodeling the Head Start building. The old library in Brookings was approved by the BOC. The grant for this project was over $1 million and is scheduled to be completed in September 2019. This should be a boon to our local economy by adding construction jobs as well as giving our young children a better and safer place to learn. 3, the BOC sent a letter to Sutter Coast Hospital's directors expressing concerns about the high cost to citizens who use their emergency room. Just as an aside, 26% of Sutter's inpatient revenue comes from Curry County. Their emergency room services were contracted to M-Care, which were charging approximately 10 times the maximum allowable charge for local carriers. The Del Norte supervisors and the Del Norte Health District also sent letters about these high charges. As a result, Sutter Coast has discontinued the contract with M-Care effective January 2019, and patients going to the emergency room at Sutter Coast will now be paying far less for their care. 4, it has been verified by state officials that it is legal and possible to have a critical access satellite hospital in Brookings. A standalone emergency room has been advocated for Brookings, but it is important to note that CMS, that's Medicare, frowns on standalone emergency rooms because they increase costs and risks for patients. Much work has to be done on this issue before it can come to fruition. 5, Curry County Public Transit Service District is eligible to get significant new grant funding through STIF, that's Statewide Transportation Improvement Funds. The grant application has been submitted, and the Transit District will use the new funding source to give the public more access to public transportation in Curry County by extending the hours and number of routes that are available. Under economic development,
Let's go do 3.
First, BOC passed an ordinance that approved having enterprise zones in Curry County. Industries built in these zones could get lower property taxes for a limited time and would have to pay employees more than minimum wage. It is important to note that these industries would be subject to current county zoning regulations and would have to go through the proper process to obtain building permits. The goal is to bring investment and jobs to the county for sustained long-term growth. 2, the airport was sold to the city of Brookings. This is the culmination of years of discussion between the city and the county. Bottom line, the city has plans to develop the airport that are easier to accomplish with city ownership. The future development of the airport will benefit all Curry County citizens. 3, a Citizens Revenue Task Force, that's CRFT, was formed, and they have had a number of meetings to find possible increased revenue for the county. First thing that came out of the CRFT was a possible ballot measure for a transient lodging tax, that's a TLT. This would implement a tax for temporary lodging under 30 days to facilities in unincorporated areas. These taxes are currently being charged in our cities. The BOC approved the first reading of this ballot measure. After the second reading, it should be on the May 2019 ballot. Other possible ideas for increasing county revenue will be discussed by the CRFT and will be brought to the BOC for consideration. Appropriate measures will be referred to the citizens who ultimately decide the future of the county. 4, the BOC passed an ordinance that will allow Pacific Gales Golf Course in Port Orford to use wastewater from the Port Orford Waste Treatment Facility to water the course. This will be a win-win for the city and the county and the golf course. Next, improving county efficiency, communication, and transparency. 1, the new county website was launched on February 8th, 2018. The website makes it much easier for the public to access all of the meetings, the GIS system, and other items of interest. 2, the county continues to televise all meetings and has approved Curry Voices using citizen volunteers that have been trained to use equipment to produce programs that are of interest to Curry County citizens. 3, Clark Schroeder, the county administrator, was hired in April 2018 after extensive recruiting efforts of the Proftman firm. This is the first time Curry County has hired an administrator. Over 50% of all general law counties in Oregon currently have administrators. 4, an ordinance was passed to make sure that all public records requests are handled in an efficient, consistent, and legal manner. 5, extensive effort was put forth by Commissioner Huxley, Julie Swift, HR Director, and John Huddle, Legal Counsel, in conjunction with department heads and administrator to update and revise the employee handbook. 6, there were several large purchases that were approved by the BOC for equipment for the road department that will enable them to make quicker road repairs and have less downtime because of old equipment failures. In the long run, these pieces of equipment will enable the road department to be more cost-effective and efficient. And last, public safety. 1, the BOC increased the budget to fund 4 new road deputies for Sheriff's Department. 2, the ambulance services of Port Orford and Calor were consolidated, all under Calor. 3, the elevator in the jail was replaced. It's important to note that both the jail and the courthouse are extremely old and will need to be replaced. And that's understating the issue. The communication towers, these are needed for 911, or 911 rather, need to be replaced and will take millions of dollars to do so. These towers are so old that parts are no longer available for repairs. In the past, there were no provisions made to bill the entities that use these towers for future replacement. This issue is currently being addressed. 4, the BOC approved funding for a study done by Portland State University that will be looking at the feasibility of consolidating all of the 911 services in the county. This study is being paid for by both Brookings and the county equally. 5, unfortunately, there were 2 fires in Curry County. The Lobster Creek fire, which was extinguished within weeks, and the Klondike fire, which was close to Agnes. That was very large and was not extinguished until early December. A number of families had to be evacuated for a short period, and fortunately no citizens were injured and no homes were destroyed. Thank you.
Any further comments? Ms. Gould, any your commissioner comments, anything further?
No, that's it. I think that was plenty.
Commissioner?
I just have a couple other items. I may have a state of the county. I think it'd be wise just to do that, to offer that on the 9th. I could do it today if there's time. I see we're under 45 minutes, which is maybe notable. But if I may, and subject to the board's approval here, ask for a consensus to direct staff to bring back and possibly emergency ordinance to repeal the travel policy, travel ordinance and policy, and then along with that, staff could, I think we need a resolution to increase that budget so that you'll be able to go to county college, and we may need, I doubt if we would use this much, but we may need to increase that for the last 6 months by $15,000. But if we could just, Mr. Chair, bring that to the board right now and just have a general discussion and see where we are on that.
Commissioner Gold?
The only thing a problem I've had with travel is that there has been a lack of accountability, no receipts put in, that sort of thing. I am all for travel as long as there's receipts that are and documentation of that travel is presented. I think that's important for us to be as accountable for our actions as the employees are required to be.
And I would concur with that, that we do need to set up things. you know, travel in this county is essential, and we need to travel not only in the county, but we need to travel outside the county, especially if you're going to look for revenue sources. I find it difficult to ask somebody to come here and ask them for their money. We're going to be looking at private sector money as well to invest in the county. So I do believe that we need a broader travel policy, but I do agree that we need to have some set rules like I remember when I worked for GSA Services when I was a kid, we had a clipboard that had a piece of paper on it, who checked the car out, what miles were on the car when they left, what miles were on the car when they came back, and if they bought gas, they had a receipt. I'm not in big favor of having credit cards. I just assume each commissioner submit an invoice or their credit card receipts to the county to pay it back, but those are my opinions. But I do agree we need to move pretty quickly to expand our travel policy because it's going to be necessary to help pull the county up. We will also need Louise to get with us possibly in a workshop in the next week. It's going to have to be done pretty quickly though. Again, let's bring our sleeping bags.
On your left.
Yes.
Two points. Council Huddle, what would be the procedure to repeal an ordinance?
Usually, in my experience, you use the same procedure to repeal an ordinance that you use to adopt an ordinance. So under Oregon statute, that requires 2 readings unless it's an emergency, which is 1 reading by unanimous vote or 2 readings. Also, ordinances are effective 90 days after adoption unless emergency. So even if an emergency reading takes 2 votes, it can still be effective immediately. So.
And does there need to be any notice to repeal that travel ordinance?
The published notice that we put out on our...
Would be enough. They would only need 10 days. Okay. The second thing, from a budgetary standpoint, due to the fund level for the commissioner's travel budget, any additional money would have to have a supplemental budget. Supplemental budgets need to be advertised, so there need to be a 10-day notice in the paper in order to bring that back to the board for basically a vote. Ms. Kallstrom, would you like to expand on that particular sentence?
Okay, so a supplemental budget that will affect the appropriation level by more than 10%, which I believe that this would. I think the current budget is like 8,000, so if you're going to add 15, certainly would have to be advertised. That advertisement is not less than 5 days, not more than 10. So I do need, our papers are weekly, so I would have to advertise by a Wednesday. So a supplemental budget for travel could not go in before the January 22nd meeting, because I have to advertise it next Wednesday for that meeting.
Could we advertise on Saturday?
It's not 5 days.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So we would have a meeting on the you're recommending a meeting on the 23rd of January, a Wednesday?
Yeah, I think, isn't that the next, are we not having a meeting?
Well,
general meeting?
Yeah, we can
that day?
schedule meetings. We don't have actually, I only have one item on the agenda for the 16th. I don't have anything else to discuss, but
I do have.
You basically would put something in the paper, so it'd be advertised on the 16th, right?
To be advertised on the 16th.
Advertised on the 16th, so therefore the board could consider on the 23rd.
Yes. And I have several other supplemental budgets that I need to put in, and they have to be advertised too, so I could do it all at once. So
Okay.
I do have more than one item then for the 23rd on supplemental budget.
Okay, so we should, so the question, one of the things for the board to consider is, even considering on the 16th, we have a 2-hour minimum for our viewing. So if we meet and we just have one item, we still get charged for 2 hours worth of meeting time. So we want to make sure we're packaging enough items to make sure it's worthwhile and it's effective, cost effective to do this. So we could tentatively schedule a meeting on the 23rd then. Actually, we wouldn't have to tentatively schedule, we have to schedule it today so she could get the advertisement in.
You know, if you do, I thought that the 16th was a workshop
Yeah.
date.
It's a meeting.
It is
That's
going
a
to be a
meeting.
meeting. Then if I can get supplemental budgets in by after lunch, I could have it for the 16th because it'll go in on the 9th. However, I need to know how much you want me to put in for a travel budget, how much you want to add to the travel budget so that I could put a supplemental budget in for that, and I need to know that today.
I mentioned 15. Go ahead.
Council.
So I had some questions, and we talk about the commissioner travel budget, and is the commissioner travel budget just one item, or is it, I thought it was vehicle allowance, meals, and
Conference
training,
fees,
Right.
conference fees, travel, meals and lodging, car.
Okay. So, and
So it's like 4 or 5 different line items,
okay.
but those line items currently total $4,500.
Right, and so Commissioner Boyce just asked for it to be raised by an amount of $15,000. So is that sufficient enough for you to put within those?
Yes,
Okay.
I could just take that in a, maybe even, you know, just percentage-wise, spread that
Okay.
15,000 over those, or whatever makes sense, and then I bring it to you, and you decide if that's,
Very good, thank you. Okay, is that clear enough then?
yes. I
Okay.
just like to have board direction to make sure that.
I
that's
just have a
what-
question. Is that going to be 15,000 total for the year, or are you adding 15,000 for the rest of the year? Is that what you're proposing?
My understanding is that it's adding $15,000 to the 45-ish that's already in there, bringing
Okay,
it
so we're
close to a total of
talking
20.
20,000
Yeah.
approximately.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just keep things in perspective. The $4,700,
45.
45,
Last
So-
year was 47.
excuse me, thank you, that is correct. And that's also, just again for perspective, that's also your budget, 4,500, right? So we're right at the same level for
You know,
commissioners.
I know the commissioner's budget well, but to know my budget, I'd have to go
I'm
and
sure that's what
add
you
that
told
up
me, but I
myself.
could be
And,
wrong.
yeah,
Also on
and that would be going off the top of my head. I'd prefer not to do
Okay, but
numbers like
they're very
that.
comparable, and
Yes.
that's the point, to show you how restrictive it has been, and that's a way, hopefully, that we justify to the public why I would say 15 or even 20,000 total. Just a side note, my credit card, since I took office, runs about $102 average a month. Okay. Also on the 9th, in interest to our respect for Commissioner Gold's request, any notion that I haven't been held accountable, if I have staff, I can offer absolutely. And in fact, I have available an Excel spreadsheet that shows every dime that's been spent that I have spent for and toward county travel since I took office January 1st, 2017, and including about $3,000 of my own money to somehow make it work because of the $4,700 restricted budget that has made it very, very difficult. So I can have that available on the 9th, but do we have, Mr. Chair, a consensus that we want to direct staff to go in this direction? I think I'm hearing we do.
I would agree.
I think it's a little high myself, but, you know,
We're going to have you travel too. We need
I
you.
actually have been,
Yeah.
and I have not charged the county a dime, just to let you know.
Well, appreciate that.
I don't think it's been appreciated much at all, but that's okay.
Well, have you brought reports back, Madam Chair? Because this
Yes,
is...
I have.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
All right.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and the other thing, just to highlight that 15,000, we actually, and again, I don't have the figures in front of me, but we're actually in the hole. We've actually overspent the $4,500 already. So we'll be, not by much, maybe $1,000. I don't know, I mean,
Roughly.
There's, whatever it is, we're slightly over that $4,500 already.
I
so-
understand.
And
What
just
were-
for further direction, you want me to transfer $15,000 from the general fund to the Commissioner's Fund, Fund 111, $15,000. And from the general fund, that money would come from, there's a $60,000 material and services budget item that we use for things that come up during the year. Is that where you would like me to reduce that expenditure line item and move that as a revenue over to a transfer to the Commissioner Fund?
Commissioner Gold?
I just have a question on the Materials and Services Fund. What have we used in the past? What's the history on that?
Last year, the year before, the Budget Committee reduced that from $100,000 down to $60,000. It's kind of a contingency fund for things that come up during the year.
Okay.
Last year, we completely used almost every dollar of it for things that came up during the year. And this year, so far, I don't believe we've used much, if any, of it yet.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Councilor Hubble.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Louise, you mentioned you had multiple supplemental budgets to present.
Yes, I have, to confess, I haven't.
I was going to ask if you would just share what those might be. I just curious. I hope that's okay to ask that question.
So,
The other ones are going to
so last year in January, there was a change in the way that the state provided monies to public health. And so they decided to do that in January. We had to do a supplemental budget because at that time the money started coming into the county directly and then passed through to CCH. The money that were supposed to come in from January to June of 2018, got to figure out 17, 18 years, was about $200,000. So when we did that supplemental budget, it was after I had set up all of the budget sheets, and I did not catch that. And so what I need to put in a supplemental budget in public health is that whole thing for a whole year. So I need a supplemental budget of bringing in the $400,000 from the state and then passing it through to CCH.
So it's basically a wash is all it is.
It's a wash, but it has to have a supplemental budget because although I could bring in the $400,000, I'm not really supposed to send out $400,000, but I have no budget to do that.
Plus it provides you transparency.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
And what else?
You know, there's a couple more, and I'm just really not sure. I kind of have a little small pile. I'm not even sure if those need to be advertised. I just do have a couple more budgets. One of the things I still have not done yet, because negotiations still haven't finished yet, is none of the negotiated for SEIU or the sheriff, which have already been settled, were in the budget. So I'm probably going to have to do supplemental budgets to transfer funds to the funds that need, departments that need to, for those settlements. The only reason I haven't done it is because I probably will have to advertise some of those. And if I do, then I would like to include, it costs a lot of money to do those supplemental budget advertising, and I'd like to include whatever we decide on the road department, which is still in negotiations. And there might be some non-represented payroll adjustments, maybe, I don't know.
Well, I'm
so
sure we'll
I'd like
keep
to
you
have
busy
it
the next
all,
couple of months.
all in one big package when I do that, so that I don't have all those trickling through and being advertised in several times when it's a couple $100 every time I do those advertising.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilor Hall, how can we make that hopefully a little bit easy for her, or schedule that, or is there something we can do in addition?
I think Louise outlined the process. If she gets the supplemental budgets prepared by this afternoon, and she has at least clear enough direction on the travel, it can be put on for action on the 16th. So.
You mentioned several budgets you wanted to advertise for.
Well, there's that one that for public health I need to
That was the other one.
to advertise for sure. I have to look at the couple more that's on my desk and make sure that they don't have to be advertised, but if they do, I'll include that in this advertising.
And those are to reflect the negotiated raises in the union agreements that weren't in.
No, I'm not doing
Oh,
that one yet,
okay,
but
got
I just know
Okay.
as I was looking through things, I think when we got the November statements, I noticed a couple of things that needed to be repaired, and so I just don't remember if they needed advertising.
Okay.
If we're done with the budget, about the ordinance for the travel ordinance. Before you had a travel ordinance, you had a travel policy, which was adopted in November of 2017. And so the discussion point for the board is if you go ahead and have a new ordinance, emergency removing the travel ordinance, are you going to revert back to the travel policy? And would you like to have a discussion concerning what should the travel policy reflect for Commissioner travel?
Commissioner Gold?
Well, I definitely think there should be some guidelines for Commissioner travel. I'm going to go back to the old saying that there needs to be accountability, and if there's not, I don't think we're doing the public the service that we should be doing.
Commissioner Boyce?
Well, there's a certain magistrate, with all due respect, that decided that there was plenty of accountability and effort, and that's how he ruled. And in addition to that, it was mentioned about busting the budget. That same judge also recognized that it was essentially on paper from one county department to another charging 43 cents a mile on a 13-year-old car that put us way over, even though I was putting my own fuel in quite often, more than not. So I'll have the accountability for you on Wednesday. And in interest to where this board is going in the future with a policy, I think we do need to repeal that travel ordinance and immediately start working on a new policy. And I agree with Commissioner Gold on that.
I agree with the commission on that as well. I think we need to, look toward repealing the ordinance. I would say that we need to, pardon?
And change the policy?
Change the policy.
Okay.
And like I said, there are some very clean, easy, clear ways for accountability in a travel policy with their vehicles and hotels and our food and all that. So I think we can quickly and easily get that worked out.
Mr. Huddle, how long would it take you to prepare a new ordinance to repeal a travel ordinance? Because obviously we can't do it Wednesday because obviously we don't have notice. But would you like to put that on the schedule for next week?
Well, it sounds like we are going to have a meeting on the 16th. And again, the notice requirement is a reasonable notice. And so we could do the ordinance on the 16th. And certainly I could prepare an ordinance to repeal another ordinance would be a one-liner. It would be pretty simple. And then the real work would be putting together a draft travel policy. But we have so much material to work from, I think I could send around some drafts of that in very short order. So I think by the 16th we could have both those items prepared for the board.
That'd be my recommendation, is in order to have get feedback from the commissioners, that you basically collate and then we could basically present something instead of having just a hour-long line-by-line discussion of each policy. So I think that'd be the most efficient method to get that repealed.
I think feedback is great from all the commissioners. Get their feedbacks and thoughts, and then you can compile from there. Right. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you again. There's several citizens that agree with us in what you just said, that it's a fairly simple thing to do. And apparently that's Travel Ordinance 1804, and that's what we would be revoking?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I've already done some work on that.
So Ms. Colstrom, you have the direction you need. Okay, and County Council, you have the direction you need.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else for any further comments? All right, at this time we are going to enter into an executive session. And then once we come out of executive session, we will come back into a live session here and let you know. Yes, County Council.
Oh, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, when you do executive session, we list the statutory reasons. This is per ORS 192.6602F to consider information exempt by law from inspection in this attorney-client conversation. and then ORS 192-660-2H to consider legal rights and duties regarding likely litigation. This is about options with respect to the county administrator, and if you look on next week's agenda, there's further discussion of that. No decisions will be made at this date on that issue. So we're just going to discuss what the paths are. So, and no decision will be made. So that's what's on the exec session for this afternoon.
For Mr. Boyce, this meeting is
Well, we're in exec session.
Show some
We're
courage.
going to ask a
Recess.
5-minute recess?
Recess.
Okay,
Recess.
so we'll see you in a few.
And it is 12:30 on January 7th. After coming out of executive session, we are going to proceed as directed with the things that we talked about in executive session. And can I get a motion?
So move, Mr. Chair.
And a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.